The New York Giants fall to 0-2 on the season, as I predicted that they will, and they fall to the Washington Commanders. Not a very good team. Two bad teams played each other today, and the worser of the bad teams, which is the New York Giants, found a way to lose once again. That old saying falls true, and it is good teams find way to win, bad teams find way to lose. More for the Giants today, which were the badder team of the two. I'm not mad at this team anymore. They've kind of sucked the life out of me. They kind of sucked the life out of the fan base at this stage. This game solely falls on Brian Daboll's shoulders. How do you not have a kicker ready to go, called up from the practice squad, when Graham Gano's been dealing with sort of a groin issue throughout the week, right? Now, Brian Daboll in his postgame comes out and says that Graham Gano hurt his hamstring on the opening kickoff, and that was the problem. But the fact that you have Graham Gano, who's kind of made out of glass at this stage of his career, and you don't have a backup kicker ready to go, you have one on the practice squad, I don't know why you wouldn't call him up just in case Gano and something happens with this groin injury. Now, if Gano is fully healthy and then he gets hurt, you understand that. But Gano went on the injury report on Saturday morning after practice, and the Giants failed to have an emergency kicker ready, which completely cost them this game. 3 touchdowns from the Giants this game. I know the 18 points might, if you're just somebody who tuned in and just saw the score and you saw 18 points, you would have assumed the Giants just kicked 6 field goals, but they didn't. They scored 3 touchdowns. On the first touchdown, when they took the 6-3 lead in the first quarter, the Giants weren't able to get the Jamie Gillen extra point through. He missed it wide right. It wasn't even close, honestly, and that's probably why Daboll decided not to go with Jamie Gillen, even when they were down by the 20 and the 15 later on in the game. But we'll get to that. But again, Brian Daboll, this has to fall on him. He's completely regressed from year one. You start on such a high with Brian Daboll winning Coach of the Year, and now there's pretty much no way to go. There's pretty much nowhere to go than down, right? When Daboll wins Coach of the Year, a lot of us assume the next year that this guy would be the coach for the future. Now, again, it's week 2 of year 3. I'm not going to say that he won't be the coach of the future, but it's not trending in the right direction now. The Giants are 0-2, and I said in my post game last week, the Giants are going to start the season 0-8. I don't see where they're getting their first win of the season. They've become a team now who can't do everything together in one game. One game it's the defense. One game it's the offense. One game it's Daniel Jones we're blaming. One game it's Brian Daboll we're blaming. One game it's Joe Shane we're blaming. One game it's Kayvon Thibodeau we're blaming. They just cannot get all 3 facets of the game put together into one single week. And the Giants they look unprepared. And to not have, again, going back, if the Giants had a kicker in this game, they probably win this game. Because they held Washington, who scored 21 points today, on 7 field goals. The Shane Bowen defense of the bend, don't break was exactly bend, don't break today. And it was completely what you heard when he was in Tennessee. This way showing it is the complete extreme of what Shane Bowen's defense was. The Giants couldn't stop the run all day. Washington gashed them for over 200 yards. Brian Robinson was breaking tackles left and right. Jaden Daniels, I'll get to Jaden Daniels in a minute, but rushing the football, they were able to kind of get whatever they wanted. Brian Robinson ran for 133 yards today. Austin Eckler ran for 38 yards, but it was a tough 38 yards, a lot of back-breaking yards there. It was the 3rd and 14, if I'm not mistaken, on their second drive in the red zone. They run a draw play to Austin Eckler, and he gets 13 yards on that play, which was unacceptable. Zach Ertz turned back the hands of time and decided to play out of his mind today. Caught the ball 4 times, 62 yards, but 2 of them were back-breaking catches. One almost a Jason Pinnock interception. Noah Brown, a lot of these were chunk yardage and wide open yardage. The Giants, when they threw the ball into these spots, and Jaden Daniels threw the ball into these spots, there was nobody around some of these receivers. Zach Ertz, I don't even know how he's still in the league. And I think it's because Washington just felt bad at some point. But Zach Ertz, again, Austin Eckler had 47 yards receiving. One of those plays on a screen where I think he went like 27, 28 yards to completely break open the Giant defense. Again, Brian Robinson, the Giants just can't seem to stop Brian Robinson. Jaden Daniels was okay. You look at his stats of 23 of 29, 226. I mean, it seems like they're not ready to unleash Jaden Daniels just yet into the NFL. They're taking it extremely slow with him. 80 to 85% of what he did the first 2 weeks of the season now is screenplays, checkdowns, and anything within a 10-yard radius of throwing the football. They're being extremely careful with Jaden Daniels early on in his career. At some point, he's going to have to throw the ball further than 10 yards down the field. He's also going to learn, Jaden Daniels is going to learn, he has to learn how to slide in the right spots. He has to learn how to get out of bounds. There was one play on the second or third drive where he got a helmet to the ribs and then he fell to the floor, all because he didn't slide correctly, because he was trying to push for that first down. But when you get to the NFL, these guys are stronger. These guys are faster. These guys hit harder. You're going to have to learn how to get down. But let's get, now that we covered the Commanders, who are now 2-0. I mean, I'm sorry, 1-1. Good for them. They still suck. If we're being real, the Commanders suck. They're the only team on this schedule besides the Panthers that the Giants equal out with. So Washington, still, they do suck still. So, I mean, they're going to be fighting right at the top of the draft with the Giants and Panthers. Daniel Jones played better. He played decently. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter praising Daniel Jones for this game, saying it was a great game. Why do we do this with Daniel Jones, where we know what the end result is already with this guy? So stop. People are trying to pump him up just because he's always been beaten down. He's the reason why he was beaten down all these years. So Daniel Jones, 16 of 28, 178, 2 touchdowns. Finally nice to see him throw touchdowns again. I even forgot that feeling for a while. But he played well. He played well enough to win. It's not like he lit up the Giants didn't have the ball a lot on offense. 37 minutes compared to 22 for Washington. That's unacceptable. Shane Bowen's defense just got gashed and gashed and gashed over and over and over. They couldn't get off the field on third down, and it was extremely pathetic. Some of these calls, and the referees, I mean, I think they said it during the broadcast. You know, players are fined when they make a mistake on the field. I don't know how the referees aren't fined when they make a mistake on the field. Some of these calls were egregious. I don't know how these guys maintain their level of job security. Something has to happen with referees when they screw up this badly. But again, Jones played well enough to win. You know, he didn't light anything up. Devin Singletary ran really well today. 95 yards on the ground for a touchdown, and he ran in for a touchdown. You know, you're going to get that from Singletary. He's going to be more consistent with what he does throughout his career. He's extremely underrated. Tyrone Tracy got in there for a rush. The offensive line, besides Malik Nabers, who I'm going to get to in a minute, the offensive line has been one of the biggest bright spots for the first 2 weeks of the year, especially today. They looked a lot more cohesive today. They opened up a lot of holes for Singletary. They kept Jones upright in the pocket. I think he only took 1 sack because not because of the line. I mean, they blocked for a few seconds, just nobody got open downfield. But the offensive line blocking and running the football is extremely improved from what it's been over the last how many years have we been complaining about the offensive line. Darius Slayton, had a big drop on a 2-point conversion. The Giants had to go for 2 after each touchdown because of the Gano botch because of not having a kicker on the field. Brian Dable, again, that's on you. Singletary had a catch. Wan'Dale Robinson got himself into the end zone, which was nice to see. I'd like to see him utilized a little more up and down the field and in the slot, and seeing how we could get him the football in space. He's extremely dangerous after the catch. And speaking of after the catch, the biggest bright spot of this game, and of the Giants' near future is wide receiver Malik Nabers. The breakout game that we've been waiting for, even though it's only been 2 weeks. He had a decent week 1. And now he had a big, now I'll get the first negative out of the way. He had a big 4th down drop. Jones did a really good job of getting out of the pocket and extending the play. And Malik Nabers had to toe tap himself. He got open and then just a flat out drop on 4th down. What are you going to do? That one play is not going to excuse the amazing play, the amazing game that he had, and the future that he's going to have. Malik Nabers is one of the only reasons we were in this game, probably the biggest reason we were in this game. His yards after catch on one drive that led to his first career touchdown. His yards after catch is something that we haven't seen since Odell Beckham Jr. There was a lot of 4-5 yard curl plays and crosser routes to Nabers that he makes one cut and he turns it into a 30-yard gain. So, the final day for him, 10 catches, 127 yards, and a touchdown, his first career touchdown. You're going to see a lot of this from Malik Nabers throughout the season. It's going to be the one big bright spot on this offense. You're going to have Singletary give you these games more often than not. You're going to have Daniel Jones play up and down throughout the season. If he's healthy, this is what you're going to get from Daniel Jones all season. You're not going to get the 350-yard passer that he was in the playoff game. You're going to get this check down mentality that he has to force feed the ball to Malik Nabers. Because once Malik Nabers gets the ball in his hands, you see how electric that he is. And this is why I had him as my number 1 player coming out of the NFL draft last season. This guy creates yards after the catch that not a lot of players can do and make your quarterback look a little better in the stat sheet at the end of the game. So you look at Jones' 178 yards, 127 of them were to Malik Nabers. And off the top of my head, I know he had 30 on that one drive, but I think about 50 to 60 of those were yards after the catch. So if you minus those from Jones's numbers, Malik Nabers caused Jones to get into that 178 range over the 150 range, strictly because of his talent, right? This one stings a little. I know I'm at the point now where I know the Giants are bad. I knew they were bad last week. It's not really much that you can. It's not really a shocker anymore, but this one stung because the defense did absolutely nothing to help themselves. They can't create a turnover if their lives depended on it. They give up 7 field goals to Washington. Yeah. They couldn't stop them in the middle of the field. Every time Washington had the ball, they didn't punt all day. Washington did not punt all day long. You're not going to win games. I don't care if you give up 5 field goals. You got to have the ball in your hands in order to be a successful team. And this team is just not good. They're poorly ran. They're poorly coached. More often than not, we're getting bad quarterback play. But there was some positives to come out of this game. If you're one of the people that are not pessimistic, and if you're optimistic, there was positives to come out of the game, like Nabers, like Singletary, like the offensive line. And that's on the offensive side of the ball. And now on to the defense. Like I said, this defense it's going to be a long year, right? This might be a one-and-done year for Shane Bowen if this keeps up. Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, once again, we called their names maybe 1 or 2 times throughout the game. Thibodeau got a sack, but it was because Daniels is more prone now in the NFL to just kind of drop back, look for the one read, and if it's not there, he likes to take off. That's kind of where Thibodeau got that sack. Burns made a good play on a 3rd down where on a draw where he swallowed up the running back. But they had a couple of hurries, but nothing that really affected Daniels to the point where the Giants got off the field. Like there was maybe a handful. There was probably 4 to 5 3rd and longs where it was like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 13, 3rd and 14. Giants had a chance to get off the field, and these guys generated absolutely no pass rush, where Daniels had plenty of time to just sit back there and look for an open receiver, which turned out to be Zach Ertz, which turned out to be Noah Brown, which turned out to be Austin Eckler. But, again, pass rush, absolutely non-existent. It is just – this is 2 weeks in a row now where we're looking for Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. You traded for Brian Burns. You gave him all this money to get to the quarterback, and 2 weeks in, non-existent. I'm not going to say that's, it's 2 weeks into a 5-year extension. You're not going to go too crazy because he is one of the building blocks of this team. But Kayvon Thibodeau is a guy who is running his leash with the Giant fans is running real short. People are getting tired of Kayvon Thibodeau really quickly. His pregame interview that he had with the media, where he didn't really consider the Commanders a rival, just because they play in the same division, he said doesn't make them a rival. I mean, this guy just doesn't seem to get it. I don't see him lasting long in New York. Maybe he's not the type of guy that needs the big media around him. Maybe he'll be a little more successful elsewhere where there's not that many cameras or questions in his face. But this guy is non-existent again 2 weeks into the season, just like Burns. Okereke played well. McFadden played well. I know he had a sack on Daniels early in the game. I kind of think he let up a little bit based on the rules in the NFL, where if you sneeze on the quarterback, it's a penalty. But he did have the sack. He made some nice plays. I think he re-aggravated his back injury, but he came back into the game. Deonte Banks played real well. Again, his rivalry with Terry McLaurin seems to be going back and forth. McLaurin was held under 30 yards today. McLaurin, panning out to be an extremely overrated guy, especially when he plays Deonte Banks. The biggest bright spot on defense, obviously, if you watch this game and last week, is rookie third-round pick out of Kentucky, Drew Phillips. This guy is emerging quickly as one of the better, I don't want to say one of the better players in the league, but he's emerging quickly as one of the top defenders already 2 weeks into it, as one of the top defenders on this team. Doesn't miss tackles. This is everything he had in Kentucky. Doesn't miss tackles. Has a nose for the football, as you saw last week with the fumble. Gets behind the line of scrimmage. Not afraid to attack guys. Not afraid to attack guys bigger and stronger than him. He made some excellent plays today. A lot of TFLs for Drew Phillips. I'm extremely excited to have him on this defense. But, circling back now to the state of where this franchise is, I don't see where the first win is coming from, okay? Like I did last week, I'll go over just really quickly, I'll go over the schedule for the Giants coming up now, because you had this winnable game, although it wasn't like Minnesota, where that was just non-competitive from the start. This one was a lot more competitive. The problem was you didn't have a kicker because your head coach decided not to put one off the practice squad because Graham Gano said that he was good to go, and everybody thought he was good to go for Sunday. Like I said before, I don't see. You lost these first two games, so I don't see where the first win is coming from. Right? You go 0-2 now. Now you're going to Cleveland, where Cleveland got their first win of the season today, and they looked a little better. And that defense is just going to eat this offense alive if we can't clean a lot of things up. And especially if the Giant defense can't get off the field, it's just going to be a weekly thing. And now you get a quick turnaround, and you play Dallas on Thursday night. Now, listen, I know Dallas lost. They got embarrassed in Jerry World today, 44-19 or something like that. Alvin Kamara went nuts. I know Dallas got blown out, but you haven't shown that you could compete with Dallas yet in so many years. So until you actually start to compete with Dallas, they've completely owned the Giants for too long now. So that puts you at 0-4. Then they go to one of the hardest places to play in football at Seattle. That's going to be a tough game. That could easily be 0-5. These are not games where I'm surprisingly not picking the Giants just because they suck. I'm picking them because these are actual losable games now. Then you're hosting the Bengals at home on a Sunday night, and you're already 0-5. And if Joe Burrow seems to get back on track, which it seems like from what I see, it looks like he's doing today against the Chiefs, it looks like the Bengals are going to be better, and that'll put you at 0-6. Then you get Saquon Barkley's welcome back game to MetLife Stadium. You had another team just like Dallas. You haven't shown that you could compete with Philadelphia for all these years now. So why start now? That could be 0-7. And then you go at Pittsburgh on a Monday night. Now you want to say You might have a shot with Justin Fields playing quarterback or even Russell Wilson at this point. I don't. I think you're going into there at 0-7 with an extremely well-oiled coach machine, which Mike Tomlin does. So by October 28th, the Giants will be 0-8. And there's just, unless something drastic changes, the Giants will be 0-8 by October 28th. And then they have the 2 games against the Commanders and the Panthers after that. And one of them, the Panthers game being in Germany, that could easily be for the number 1 overall pick. And you could flip a coin with the Giants and Panthers on who's worse. Giants played a little better today. Panthers still can't even get past the 50-yard line, it seems like. I think I was very wrong on Bryce Young. I thought he was going to be significantly improved this season compared to last. He was in a crap situation last season. And it seems like he's even in a worse situation now. But that game could be for the number 1 pick, right? I don't see where the Giants are getting their first win from. They're poorly coached, poorly run. Jones had a decent game this week, but Jones could easily follow that up with a complete crapshoot next week. So it's not like the Giants are consistent in what they do. I think the few consistents that you could say now is you have a wide receiver in Malik Neighbors moving forward. That's a building block. You have that piece in place. You have what seems to be an extremely improved offensive line. They gave Jones a lot of time to throw today. They opened up a lot of holes for Singletary, and they look a lot better than they have in years past. You have an all-world left tackle. You have Malik Neighbors, you have Andrew Thomas, and you have that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for the Giants. You have nice pieces like Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't think Slayton's going to be here next year. Jalen Hyatt doesn't have a catch for the first 2 weeks of the season. I don't know if a tight end has a catch for the Giants over the first 2 weeks of the season. I don't even know if they're being utilized correctly. And on defense, you have Burns now for 5 years. I don't think this is what you're going to see from Brian Burns for those 5 seasons. He's going to be productive. It's just a matter of when you make a big trade or you sign a big free agent, you want to see that person start to produce extremely well right away, because that's what we've been accustomed to in life is the instant gratification. So Kayvon Thibodeau is a guy that I think he's going to be off this team. I think he's going to be off this team within the next 2 years. I don't know if he's built for New York at this stage of his career. He just, what he says in the pregame and postgames he just doesn't get it. You have Drew Phillips now as in your corner spot. He's an extremely good bright spot. You have Deonte Banks. And you have Dexter Lawrence. So honestly, on offense, I'm really just counting Malik Neighbors and Andrew Thomas as 2 of the guys that you could look forward to for the next 5 years. And on defense, it's pretty much Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Bobby Okereke as well. He's really good. And Drew Phillips and Deonte Banks. So that's what, 6 or 7? That doesn't seem like a lot of good players on a team. So that's what you're seeing now. The Giants just don't have talent on this team, and that falls on the shoulders of Joe Schoen. Out of the 53 guys that are on this team, Joe Schoen is accounted for 45 of them. So besides the quarterback, obviously, which is Daniel Jones, and the extending of Daniel Jones, besides Daniel Jones being the biggest, the head of the snake that really stinks, 45 of these 53 players are from Joe Schoen. So this is pretty much his team now. There's no more excuses of the whole Gettleman era and having to wipe away the Gettleman era. It's 3 years in now. They look worse than they did last year because of the position that they're in now. But like I said, there is bright spots. There is talent at the receiver position. The quarterback position still stinks. The offensive line looks a little better. But this one, again, just to close this out, this game does fall strictly on Brian Daboll. I don't know I just don't understand how you don't have a kicker prepared after Graham Gano shows up on the injury report on Saturday. Okay? if Graham Gano showed up on the injury report on Monday or Tuesday or even Wednesday for that matter, and then he goes through practice Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then you deem that he's healthy, that I could understand, and that most logical people will understand. But the fact of the matter is he got hurt. Apparently, he got hurt on Saturday. It doesn't matter whether you think that he's healthy or not. On Saturday, you have to bring up the emergency kicker because of what happened last year with Graham Gano. If you recall, last year during the Jets game, the Giants ran into the same problem. Gano was hurt, and they knew he was hurt, and they didn't have a kicker ready. That falls on the shoulders of Brian Daboll. That's it. You can't be this unprepared. It's going to lead to you losing your job. The owner's just going to get fed up with this kind of crap. He's been going through it for years. And when you're the owner of the team, you could do whatever you want. You could fire people after however many years you want. If I'm John Mara, I'm not putting up with this for too much longer. I can't sit through this. The stadium's going to be empty by week 7. No one's going to show up to these games anymore. So the most positive things that I could say, if you're a Giants fan and you're still getting angry about these games, I was getting angry. I was watching the game because in the middle of the game, you want to win, obviously, But if you're a Giants fan and you're getting like angry to the point of like, I used to smash. I've broken remotes. I've broken like pillowcases. I've ripped in half. Stuffed animals that didn't belong to me, I would throw across the room. I would punch a lot of things. I just don't do that anymore when the team is not competitive like this. That first year of Brian Daboll in 2022, I would get really pissed off when they would lose a game because I knew that they were being competitive and, you really feel like you have that realistic shot to win games. So it hurts more when your team is competitive. But when the Giants have done what they've done to us now for the last, how many years now? I can't even count, 10, with a couple of good years mixed in between. When the Giants have beaten the fan base this much, it's so hard. It's so hard to just get riled up for a game, and you wait all week for these games to happen. And then week 1 against Minnesota, it's just uncompetitive and it's brutal to watch. Then week 2, first play of the game, your kicker gets hurt after he said he was already hurt, and you don't have anything to back him up. You don't give up a touchdown in week 2 and you still lose, which is even more embarrassing. The Giants are just finding more ways to lose every single week and every single season. They're checking off that list of what bad teams do when they lose. So, next week when they play Cleveland, it'll be something else. Maybe the defense plays better next week, and the offense looks worse. They can't get all 3 phases of the football game into one. It's impossible. But that's it. I do think at this stage, if you're being realistic, 0-2. They showed a graphic since 2020. If you a 6% chance that an 0-2 team makes the playoffs. I knew that this team wasn't making the playoffs after last week. They're going to play a little better as the weeks go on, as what you saw last year when they started off losing 40-0. They're going to play better. The defense is going to get accustomed to Shane Bowen's system a little better. It takes a while to get accustomed to a brand new defense and a brand new scheme. I'm not excusing that they've played extremely bad, but it does take a little bit. They're going to get better. They're going to create a couple turnovers in a couple games. Maybe they win one of these games that I said they're not going to win. Could they beat Cleveland, who hasn't really looked too impressive, but that defense is very good? Could they sneak a game against Dallas on a Thursday night after a short week? Those Thursday night games could be pretty wild. You never know. Could they sneak against the Steelers? But beginning of the season, when you looked at the Saints game at home, maybe you had the Saints circled as a win. But looking at them the last 2 weeks, the Saints haven't had an offensive possession that led to a punt yet. Everything's been a score. The Saints have yet to not score on an offensive possession. And if you have this Shane Bowen defense that you see in the first 2 weeks, that's a recipe for disaster. Although that's later on in the year, but again, 0-8. Giants will start the season 0-8. It's not really too much of a hot take or a crazy prediction, but these 2 games to start the season were the 2 games. Now, with Minnesota beating San Francisco, that loss, maybe that loss doesn't look as bad, but it's still bad. And 0-8 is looming. The Giants will be in play for a top 2 or 3 pick this season in next year's draft. That's kind of where you have to be as a Giants fan at this point. I'm not saying go into it cheering for losses. You're not going to have to cheer for losses because they're just going to happen. So enjoy the bright spots of the season, like the line being better. Enjoy Malik Neighbors. Enjoy Drew Phillips. And I think that's pretty much it. I think, just enjoy the young players getting better. That's what we have to look forward to. And then I don't know who's going to be making the pick next year. But at this stage, and if this keeps up, I don't see how Shane and Dable keep their jobs, especially with Bill Belichick looming. I think that Belichick thing is not. I don't think that Belichick thing is a pipe dream. I think that is one of the most realistic coach to team hires going into next offseason will be Brian Dable. Will be Bill Belichick wanting that Giants job. So again, Giants will be 0-8. Nothing is a surprise. Don't let this get to you anymore, guys. Don't let this team get to you. They're just a bad team. When we go into this every week, we'll have fun watching the young guys develop, and that's it. We'll have a new quarterback next year, and it looks like we might have a new GM and a new head coach next year. But if you guys like this, if you got this far, like the video. It helps us a lot. And subscribe to our social medias. Same name, Pudgy Boy Sports Talk. And thank you for watching.